Last night was dinner as usual, and Avery ate dinner. She thinks she counted carbs, bolused insulin, took care of herself like she always does. Then she goes and plays tennis for an hour. And that's one of those things. When you play tennis or when you're active, you need more calories, less insulin. But she didn't think about that because she was having fun. I didn't think about that because she's a teenager. It's her responsibility. So she goes to bed, fine. 2 hours later, I wake up and she's low. I mean, we're talking scary low. So I run to find juice. We have 2 younger brothers that love her juice boxes. We keep the refrigerator stocked with juice boxes. They love them, they're gone. So then I run to another refrigerator, find a big thing of orange juice. Pour her a big glass, take it to her, wake her up, make her drink. And so she's so shaky, she's shaking orange juice all over her sheets, all over her. I don't know how much is getting into her mouth. But she's at the same time saying, thank you, Mom, thank you, Mom, thank you, Mom. So we get her back to sleep. I go back to sleep an hour later. Alarms go off again. So it was enough to get her blood sugar up a little bit, but then it went right back down. So again, grab the orange juice, get her up, give her more orange juice. It's just a nightmare. And then to have to go to sleep after that. I mean, can you, after I save my child's life again, and she's sleeping peacefully, she's fine, I'm not. We have a scary low like that, monthly, if not weekly. And we can have a great day like we did yesterday, a great evening like we did yesterday, and then a terrible night. 13, when she turned 13, that was our hardest year. We would be together as a family, and then all of a sudden she would withdraw and be quiet. And then sometimes she would just write me a note or send me a text saying that she hates diabetes. So, and I say, okay, we may be out to dinner with friends or something. I say, okay, let's put a pin in this. We can get through tonight. When we get home or we get in the car, we can cry. And we'll cry together.
So when you were 8, I wrote a story about it, and I'm gonna read it because I think it's pretty special. It's me and Jax in the car. Alone with our thoughts and music in the background, I hear a sob, a heave, and a broken whisper. I'll never forget the day that we went to the hospital, the day I was diagnosed. Me neither, I reply. And I'm quiet for a long time, so he continues. I never thought I'd leave that room and go home. I'm quiet again because I'm biting my lips, and if I move, if I speak, something inside me will break. And I can't decide if he needs me to be strong or to weep with him. I'll never ever forget that day, he says, and I bite harder. 3 things I'll never forget as long as I live. Driving to the hospital as fast as we could, sitting in a dark room with you singing to me, and going home. We've never had this conversation, this mommy and this little boy. He is, after all, a boy. And boys, well, they discuss dinosaurs, ocean life, and bodily functions. I whisper because I know this conversation, this moment is sacred. It will never come again, not like this. Raw, organic, precious. Were you scared? He is sobbing, weeping. Yes, he whispers his reply. I thought we'd never go home. I wish that day had never happened. I wish you didn't have diabetes. But we made it. Look at where we've been a year later. I wanted to add these words, but he's grieving his first expression of sorrow and the loss of a normal that he can't fully remember. So we cry. Over and over, he reminds me that he'll never forget that day, not as long as he lives. And I remind him that God kept us safe. God got us home. And while I wish with all my heart that day had never happened, I look back at the little boy he has become, the big boy he's become, and I'm so proud of the way he's handled diabetes. He is brave. He is strong. He's mine. He is mine. And if I had the choice of all the little boys in the world, the healthy ones, the kind whose mommies don't worry about low BGs or life expectancy, or who sleep through the night, knowing what I know now, I would choose him.
Melissa has a story where she went to church camp and she was actually with him at the church camp in Dallas, and she had told them he needed to have some juice with him in case he went low.
And that night, before she had left, I had poked my finger. I was really low. And she said, go ask the people for some juice. And I asked, and they were gone. And so I sat there and waited, and I told her, and she said, they'll be back in a minute. And I ended up falling asleep.
And the closest he's coming to going into a diabetic coma was on that trip.
Very scary. Not at the time, but now that I think about it in hindsight, it's terrifying.
You can't let them go anywhere without making sure that someone is almost a medical professional that goes with them.
So Bass had been walking down the street and blacked out and had a seizure when I got to Bass. His nose was broken and there was blood everywhere. Bass started vomiting every hour on the hour. I knew in that instant that something was really wrong with Bass, and I didn't know what it was. And I was so scared that I was gonna lose him. Just trying to get through that night to make it to the doctor the next morning so that we could figure out what was going on with him. And then that is when we later that day found out that indeed Bass was a type 1. We went home with 5 injections a day. The getting up endless nights. I mean, it was like having a newborn again, is what I think. It was like having a brand new baby. The hardest thing is knowing that we could lose him at any moment. And I don't think people understand that.
This is an all-consuming disease. You don't get a vacation, you don't get time off, you don't get to forget about it.
And it is a constant. You got to deal with it every day. There's no days off.
There's a reason why I have bags under my eyes for the last 8 years, because this disease is 24 hours a day. You don't get a day off unless, like they are at camp, and they're taken care of.
What has been the biggest help for me to be able to help her is to get a camp friend on the phone. And I will call, if it's late at night, I'll call one of her teenage friends or one of her counselors, and they will talk to her and sympathize with her. Only they know what she's going through.
This was his 9th year to go to camp. He went right after he was diagnosed. He was diagnosed in October, so he went the following June. And that was probably scary and hard for me that first time to let go, especially because there's no communication. And I remember the day that we went to pick him up, and he was crying, and I thought he was crying because he was so happy to see me, but that wasn't the case. He didn't want to leave. The week he's gone, it's hard, but then it's also, there's so much peace at night because I'm not worried about him. I know he's in better care with them, with the doctors and the counselors, than he is with me.
I tell her for months before she goes to camp that I already miss her. She's like, Mom, I'm right here. I'm like, I already miss you. You're gonna be gone for 3 weeks. And it's the longest 3 weeks of my life. But by that 2nd week that she's gone, and I know I will have her home in a week, I get so sad that I have to pick her up. She is truly happy at camp. Some days she'll cry for an hour in the car on the way home.
Thank you for everything. Y'all are always there, and there's just not enough thank yous in the world, but thank you.
Thank you. That's all I can say. And that's not enough. It's not enough at all.
It's great to actually get together with people so you are reminded that you're not alone. It's wonderful.
Thank you for making camp happen for Avery.